Hello, my warm greetings to all of you, dear students. I, Nidhi Mishra, welcome you to the class of Indian society. As we have already discussed various issues in our last class on population and its social dimension, right? So, moving further, today we'll be discussing the issues of poverty, which is again one of the major problems associated with population. So, poverty, then issues of urbanization, the problems, the various social, economic, and other aspects of urbanization, and the issue of globalization, right? So, moving further, let's first understand poverty. What is poverty? How do we understand poverty? So, the issue we have to understand here related to poverty is that it is one of the social problems prevalent in our society. You can also understand in this way. It has social. There are social effects of poverty. Now, poverty you have to understand both in terms of economic dimension as well as its social dimension, right? So we need to first understand that what are the issues and concepts, and what are the facts that we need to understand in relation to poverty. So when we understand the concept as poverty, what is poverty? What are the causes of poverty? What are the economic issues of poverty? What are the social effects of poverty? And what is an effective solution for poverty, right? So this is largely you have to follow the framework, right? What is poverty, the social effects of poverty, the economic dimensions of poverty, and what are the effective measures which you can take to to bring down or to overcome the social effects of poverty. Now, what is poverty? As we before going to what is poverty, the Oxfam report, it says that the first the top 1% of population actually occupies the 73% of the wealth of a country. That is what Oxfam report, it says. Oxfam report, the full form of Oxfam is Oxford, Committee for Mine and Relief. And so it's a very important document which says that the top 1% of population, holds almost 73% of the resources of a country. So when I say this, why I'm discussing right now the fact given by Oxfam, because we need to understand poverty as a social problem, but also at the same time, the relative concept, the relative inequality prevalent in our society. So you can imagine the 73% of the resources, the various resources are being just held by topmost 1%, of the population. So we need to understand poverty as an absolute concept in terms of absolute understanding, and also in terms of relative understanding, right? So uh, so so what is poverty? So poverty is largely understood as a social problem. Very much it is understood as a social problem, quite rampant in India, as we are talking about our Indian society. So quite rampant in India. Now, how do we assess and how do we understand poverty? See, if we here in India, or largely we try to understand poverty, or we try to understand the concept of poverty based on income, that is income based poverty, and consumption based poverty, that how much you are consuming, right? So income based income based understanding of poverty, and also consumption based understanding of poverty, right? So poverty we also understand as a relative concept, that how one section of the society is poor as compared to the other section of the society, right? So you can largely understand that the concept of poverty is understood as economic dimension. That is in terms of amount of money required by a person to buy, or to buy the basic needs of himself or herself, or to buy the basic, or to overcome the basic subsistence, or to subsist. So the in terms of amount of money needed for one's survival, right? Another way of understanding poverty is through living standard. So living standard is actually it keeps changing. The standard actually, it keeps changing. It can't be stagnant all the time. So when we say that living standard, so but yes, on the basis of comparison to living standard in that particular time and place, right? So when we say that in that particular time and place, the living standard maybe 19th century is different as compared to the 20th, 21st century, right? So here you need to understand that it is also measured in relation to living standard as well. So first is the amount of money needed to buy certain, to overcome or to subsist yourself. Second, in terms of living standard. And third, the relative concept, that is comparative, comparative state of well-being. Now, when we say that comparative state of well-being of a few and ill-being of majority, right? So here we are actually taking the social dimension in terms of relative poverty. That is what I just now in the beginning I talked, that Oxfam report says that the top 1% holds the majority of the resources, around 70-75% of the resources of the country, right? So we try to understand the concept of poverty in through three dimensions: the amount of money, the economy, absolutely or purely economy. As I said, that you also understand on the basis of your purchasing capacity and also your consumption capacity, that how much you are consuming, right? In other way, or also you understand that how much amount is needed for subsistence, and and the living standard, which is actually quite again a relative understanding, you can say, but a living standard in particular time and place, and in relative sense, that well-being of a few and ill-being of majority, right? So again, it is the social dimension. You are taking the relative concept of the poverty, right? But as we talk about the present scenario, the incidence of poverty has quite a bit of it. The percentage has come down from 21.9% to 20.8% in 2020. So this is important. You need to take a note of this, that the poverty of incidence, though it is a very marginal decline, but still the poverty of incidence has come down from 21.9% in 2012 to 20.8% in 2020. You also have to take into account the present scenario, the COVID pandemic, the scenario which is being created by this, by this COVID-19. So it has its various impact, which we can, discuss on later. So it has also somewhere, exasperated the issues of poverty, right? Because many of the laborers, many people across the country have lost their wages, they have lost their income, and the marginal and poor or petty businessmen, businesswomen have also lost their mode of earning. So this is all somewhere exasperated the issue, has given rise to the issue of poverty and poverty as a social problem, right? So moving further, so when we say that absolute poverty, so obviously when we talk about absolute poverty, so absolute poverty is actually, you are talking it in a very pure and an economic term, right? So when we talk about absolute poverty, then obviously you need it. Why do we talk about absolute poverty? Because you need one standard to fix, a line to be fixed or to be drawn, and on the basis of which actually the concept of, poverty line is also understood, below poverty line or above poverty line. So this is again absolute poverty is economic or a kind of a statistical concept which you can understand in this way, that the one needs an economic standard to fix the poverty line, right? Why do we need to understand this absolute concept of poverty? Because understanding the concept of subsistence poverty, because we need to assess the minimum subsistence requirement. Now, what is subsistence? Subsistence is the things needed for your survival: food, clothing, water. So these are, your shelter. These are the requirements which are subsistence. So therefore, in order to understand or to fix a poverty line, we try to understand poverty in terms of absolute concept, or the concept of absolute poverty. In the same way, just now I discussed relative poverty, that we try to understand in a comparative sense, right? That but the point here, you need to understand that it is based on convention, that relative poverty, when you're comparing, that comparison or the standard of comparison changes across time and place. So you can understand it in this way, that though the people who were poor in maybe 19th century or before, they are not poor even today, right? Or maybe they are poorer, or maybe they have improved their situation. It can be either way, right? So when we say that the relative concept of poverty is understood on the basis of convention, so you need to understand that convention changes with time and place, right? So convention changes with time and place, right? So this is another way of understanding relative poverty. Then again, an important concept is being given by Michael Lipton, the concept of ultra poverty. You need to understand, you just need to know that ultra poverty is also another concept which is being, other than absolute and relative poverty, which is given by Michael Lipton, and on the basis of which various schemes and programs is being also designed by our government. That is what is ultra poverty? So poorer among the poor, those who are again in that category of poor people. There are some population who are poorer than the poor population. So poorest among the poor is also taken into consideration. So poorest among the poor, as is understood in the concept of ultra poverty, the term given by Michael Lipton, and therefore schemes like Antyodaya and Yojana is being designed on this basis, that again the most marginalized the most marginalized section of the society, on the basis of consumption, or on the basis of on the concept of absolute poverty, those section of the society is taken care of, that they are poorest among the poor. So the ultra concept of ultra poverty, the concept given by Michael Lipton, right? So the point here is that you need to understand that government draws on the basis of economic standard, on the basis of understanding of absolute poverty. Government draws a boundary line for calculating the people who are above the poverty line and the people who are below the poverty line, so that certain schemes and programs can be launched for those who need support in our society, who need support in their subsistence, in our society. So you must have been aware, and you must be knowing that the calorie is also fixed, right, in understanding the concept of poverty. For example, in the calorie standard in rural areas is 2400 calorie per head, whereas in urban areas it is 2100 calorie per head. So 2400 calorie and 2100 calorie is also fixed fixed as a calorie standard for understanding the concept of poverty, right? So moving further, the very important aspect, or very important social aspect to be understood here, that what are the concepts or what are the issues of poverty? What are the factors that actually leading to the very important social one of the social problems of our society, that is poverty. So what are the causes of poverty? Individual, first, if we understand in this way, the causes: individual incapacity, individual somewhere limitation, maybe not to earn or not to contribute towards the economy of your country. So individual incapacity, economic factors, social factors, demographic factors, economy, or maybe you can take other factors, miscellaneous that will be taking into account. Now, what is individual incapacity? That maybe a person is not so efficient enough to earn for his or her family, right? So there is individual failure, you can also understand in that sense. Maybe there is some psychological issues, there is some physical incapacity, laziness is there, inactivity is there. So that is kind of a psychological, a very personal issue that is called as individual incapacity, right? For example, if you are talking in this way, that in little bit of sociological perspective, then the famous sociologist Max Weber has talked about that why the process of that capitalism, that took place in West. So the rise of capitalism in West. So what was the issue behind? So he said, you can criticize it on various, points and various, with various picking up the various issues. But he said that a cultural factor, a religious factor are also very important for economic development. So here he says that, and he actually talks about the individual capacity, that how one religion motivates individual capacity to contribute towards the society and to oneself also. So he actually talks about the Protestant ethics and spirit of capitalism, that in religion, in Christianity, the Protestants specifically, not the Catholics, but the Protestants, they actually worship their work, and they consider that those who work, that is only worship, and that is only their, they are the greatest service which they are giving. So work is taken into a highest degree of worship, or highest degree of homage one pays to God. So therefore, the Protestant ethics and spirit of capitalism, the book is also written by Max Weber, where he talks about individual capacity, in relation to religion and in relation to cultural aspects. Anyways, so first issue, the first factor towards poverty could be your individual incapacity. Economic factor, obviously, the inadequate economic development, the unbalanced economic development gives rise to poverty and issues related to it. Some of the states, some of the districts are taken utmost care, whereas the other states are not given due attention. And also the physical terrain, the physical features of a state may also lead to or may pose hindrances in the economic development. So one factor is economic factor, that is inadequate economic development, increasing unemployment, rise of inflation also gives rise to poverty. Your purchasing power, your purchasing capacity actually declines. You're not able to fulfill your needs and demands, right? And also too much of dependence on agriculture at times leads to unemployment, or leads to issues like poverty. Right? So this you can take as economic factor. Then let's come to demographic factor. Obviously, the rising population, adds a lot of burden on the society, adds a lot of burden on the family. So a family may not be able to meet all the needs of its family members. And the earning member, the head of the family, may not be able to meet the needs of each and every member. So single-handed person who is earning is not able to meet the subsistence level of its family. Therefore, it gives rise to issues of poverty, right? So growing population. Right, though we should understand the demographic aspect of our population, that we have demographic dividend. Now, when we say demographic dividend, that means we have larger number of proportion of young population in our country, of working population in our country, right? Now, when we say that working age population is more in our country, we also have to train them and skill them in such a way that we are able to reap the benefits of this dividend. The dividend, actually, we start reaping the benefit. So you need to correlate the terms, right? Another is bigger size of the family is, the size of the family is quite big, and the earning the single-handed person, that the family is running on single-handed person who is earning, so it adds burden, right? So the person is not able to meet the demand and the consumptions of his or her family, right? Then obviously aging demography, a kind of dependent population. The dependent population also, more proportion of dependent population in a family also leads to poverty like situation. When aging population is more in a family, young generation, young or when I'm saying young, that means the dependent population. Here when I am saying young, I am talking about the dependent population, the children, the lot of children who cannot work, who are not allowed to work. So more number of children in a family and along with the aging population also adds a kind of burden in our family. So this is a dependent population, right? They're not falling within the category of working age population. Okay. So this was demographic factor, which is leading to poverty, the issues of poverty. Then social causes of poverty, right? What are the social causes of poverty? Obviously, your cultural and your religious understanding. For example, in many of the societies or in many of the castes, for example, in privileged castes or the caste who are falling on the who are on the who are in the ladder, who are on the upper part of it, they consider, going for work maybe, or sending their women outside for work. They consider it derogatory, they consider it demeaning, right? So the concept of the cultural understanding of the concept also somewhere poses a hindrance towards work. So this is social factor which adds poverty. For example, when I talk about Chikwan village or a rural area, a family may be completely completely ridden in poverty, because only one person, male person, is going out to earn, and the female, those who are competent enough, or those who can go out and earn, but they're not allowed to go out and earn because of their ideologies and practices which actually which is being followed in that family. So this kind of social factors also adds and heightens the issue of poverty, right? So this is a social dimension, one of the social dimensions. Another is illiteracy. The population who are now again take this. If the population is literate, they are educated, even if they are guided by their caste ideology, somehow they are aware. So maybe they will come out of the shackles of their caste ideology or religious ideology, and they'll work, right? So the awareness level, the issue of literacy, also the illiterate population or the proportion also adds or aggravates the issue of poverty, right? Now, yet another social dimension, the joint family, right? When there are more members in a family, joint family. Now, the concept is, more of a extended family, right? Which I'll discuss in globalization. When I'm discussing, I'll let you know that what is the new concept of extended family these days. But the joint family, the concept of joint family and living together in a family also adds, there is always pros and cons of this, but yes, it also leads to poverty-like situation, or one of the causes of poverty is considered that large and joint families, right? Now, there are other causes also. For example, when we say other causes, the immediate cause at present, you can relate it to pandemic situation, COVID-19, which is really, really unexpected, which has happened, which we all are suffering from, and it has led to many of us have lost their employment, they have lost their livelihood, and they have been, degraded from their economic position. You take whosoever, everybody is affected by this, in one or the other way. Some are affected more and some are affected a little less. Some have been able to manage, but all have been affected by it, right? So long period, when we talk about other causes, so first we take the long period of foreign rule, the British rule, right, which is considered as, which Sashi Tharoor says, British is brutish. So the British rule in his book, the Era of Darkness. The book Era of Darkness is written by Shashi Tharoor, in which he says British is brutish. So British, the long rule, the foreign rule has also led to, poverty in our country. Why? Because there is limitation and paucity of time. Otherwise, I would have discussed. We need to understand that why this capitalism happened only in West and not in India. Even though India was a rich country, India was a resourceful country, still we suffered a lot. But so the reason behind, you could understand that we have been exploited so much by the foreign rulers that it has actually, it has actually drained off. It has led to drain of wealth from our country, and therefore we have seen, rampant poverty in our country, right? So this is one of the other causes which you can take, the longer period of foreign rule. Then obviously, other than COVID, climatic factor, maybe sudden tsunami, maybe famine, or even deluge, flood. So these are climatic factors, which are other causes which leads to poverty-like situation in our country all of a sudden. Then war and threats, right? Threats of war also. And then obviously, you cannot ignore the political dimension of poverty, the unstable government or unstable political system, or the lack of will in the political system among the government, maybe also leads to or aggravates the issue of poverty, right? Now, what are the impact? Obviously, who are impacted more because of poverty? The younger generation, would lack education. So lack of education is one of the major impact, you can say. Then obviously, infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate would rise. Mortality rate as a whole would rise. Infant mortality and maternal mortality rate would rise, right? The impact of poverty is healthcare system would crumble. There would not be sufficient healthcare system. Then issues of poverty would lead to violence in our country, would lead to unconstitutional behavior, would lead to issues of stealing and theft in our country. So such kind of issues will also crop up, issue of child labor. So these all are actually the impact of poverty, child marriage, child labor. These all are then the adolescence or delinquent behavior among children. So delinquent children, these all will give rise. These are all are the impacts of poverty. There are various researches which have shown and proved that people living below poverty line, or the people who are in ghettos, who are in slum areas, the incidence of poverty or the incidence of stealing and theft is found. The people are found more from those areas involved in the incidence of stealing and theft. So why? Because the issue of poverty, there is lack of education, the adolescents are not streamlined, and the issue of poverty leads, it actually somewhere motivates the youths from those ghettos, or the children from those ghettos, to get involved in such kind of behavior, in such kind of delinquent behavior. So these are the issues, these are the social problems which is given rise by the issue of poverty. That is why poverty is considered one of the social issues or social dimensions, or one of the social problems of our society, right? But there has to be remedial measures. So obviously the remedial measures are the various governmental schemes and the programs being run. So for example, Manrega, MG Narega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme 2005, which provides 100 days employment in a financial year to every household, right? So it such kind of a schemes takes care of gender parity or social inclusion, and it follows the DBT process, in which the money earned is transferred or electronically or from one account to another. So Manrega is one scheme. Then housing for all for BPL households, the National Social Assistance Program launched in 1995, then NRLM, that is Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, launched in 2011 for rural poor households, in which self-help groups are also involved. It involves Antyodaya Yojana involves building capacity, also training, building capacity, skill development programs. Right, then again, National Social Assistance Program. Now, this National Social Assistance Program, it is with the spirit of Article 41, which actually Article 41 of our Constitution, which actually directs the state to take enough measure to provide public assistance to its citizen in case of unemployment, in case of old age, or in case of sickness, right? So it is in the spirit of that NSAP, National Social Assistance Program, launched in 1995 for poor household people, for poor household and for poor people. So in the same way, Annapurna scheme, it gives around 10 kg of food grains per month to senior citizens. Right. Then is another important program, that is Indira Gandhi National Old Age Pension Scheme, in which rupees 200 to 500 is given per month, 200 to the age group 69 to 70 years, and 500 per month to those aged population who are above 80. Right. In the same way, National Family Benefit Scheme, NFBS, on the it is given on the death of the beneficiary, which covers the age group of 18 to 59 years, and the amount given is 20,000. So the point here, you need to understand that what are the effective measures being taken. So here you have to talk about all the effective measures which government takes in order to provide assistance to the rural and rural poor people, and also to the urban poor people. Right. So various schemes you need to include, and you need to understand that how government is trying to cut down or to curb the issue of poverty through skill development, through generating employment, by providing wage employment, by providing assistance to those who are sick, who are poor, who are unemployed. Right. So these are the ways, these are the effective ways. And also you can also add on your own that, with various awareness programs, one can also educational programs, education, providing literacy, making our population literate. So these are the factors which can also be taken as effective remedial measures to bring down poverty and to overcome the poverty from our country, because we are also guided by, we also have to follow the SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals, and one of the 17 goals, we have to cover it up by 2030. That is no poverty, gender equality, and reducing inequality in our country. So with this, that in this way, you have to understand the issue of poverty, the social dimension, the factors, the economic factors, the relative concept of inequality, the relative concept of poverty, the absolute concept of poverty, the concept of ultra poverty, the effects, the causes of poverty and the effects of poverty, and the remedial measures. This is how you have to understand the concept of poverty. Now, moving ahead, another important topic which we'll be discussing is the topic urbanization. So urbanization and their problem. It is again, these are the issues which are very much interrelated and interconnected. The population, the demographic issues, the poverty, the problem of urbanization, or the issues related to urbanization. So these are the concepts, these are the topics which are interrelated, and you have to keep a very kind of a broad perspective, a kind of broad understanding, and you should be knowing the skill of, interlinking And also, while you are writing your answer, you need to understand the concept not in a watertight compartment, but with a very open mind, that how these issues are interrelated and how I need to interconnect it in order to make my answer very concise yet very comprehensive, right? So very concise and comprehensive answer you have to write by interlinking the various issues. Now, urbanization, now you have to understand, I have seen in your question paper that one of the questions was urbanization and urbanism. How do you understand the concept urbanization and urbanism? So urbanism as a way of life is the concept given by Louis Firth, famous sociologist. So urbanism as a way of life, how do you aspire? How are the factors which are making you to change your way of living, which are your culture, your tradition, and urbanization is a process. Urbanization is a process which is actually it's a process in which the villages are becoming, coming into the fold of cities. So that is what is actually, and there are various factors which we consider as urban concept, in understanding that these are, if these factors are met, so that particular city or that particular place is called as city, or that particular place is called as urbanized place, right? So when you have enough opportunities, employment opportunities, when you have when you have a better infrastructure, when you have better housing facility, when you have better drinking water facility, when there is enough economic opportunities present, better quality of education present. So this decides your living standard, which in a way gives rise to, which is understood as could be understood in the process of urbanization, right? So urbanization, again, you need to understand the concept urban, how you call yourself urban. So people coming to cities in search of better education, in search of better employment, in search of better living standard, life standards. So this or the quality of life, this all encompasses the process of urbanization. So your aspirations for better life and better standard of living, it keeps the people mobile, moving from where? From rural area, from rural pockets to urban pockets, to the cities, to the cities. So this influx of rural people or semi-urban people to urban and metro cities is actually you understand it as the process of urbanization, or the process which leads to urbanization, you can say. When people move from one place to another, and when there is when the population increases because of at one place because of migration. So what happens? Because actually people are moving in search of a good economic opportunity or job opportunity. So when there is larger population, obviously even the government as a welfareist policy, or even the government has the duty to provide better infrastructure in that particular area. So it takes care of the market, it takes care of the infrastructure, government takes care of healthcare facilities. So better healthcare facility, better education facility, better economic opportunities, better housing capacities. This all leads to the development of an urban setting, right? So according to a UN World Urbanization report, Urbanization Prospects Report 2018, around 34% of Indian population lives in cities, right? And an increase of 3% since 2011 is already understood, right? Now there are certain concepts which you can understand, in this the concept of urbanization, that is the concept of town, the concept of city, the concept of metro cities, right? So it is all decided on the basis of population, right? So metropolitan area has 1 million population. So the area which has more than 1 million population is considered as metropolitan area, and the population and the area which has less than 1 lakh population, it is considered as town. So a town has less population, 1 lakh population, and an area which has more than 1 lakh population, it is cities. So town, then city, then metropolitan. So town has less than 1 lakh population. Then when there is more than 1 lakh population, it is considered as cities. And metropolitan, other than various facilities, the population, the demography, when we talk about it, is 1 million or more than 1 million population, it is considered as urban population. Now there is another concept, that is urban agglomeration. So urban agglomeration is city along with its surrounding suburban areas and satellite settlements are urban agglomeration. Now what happens in a city? The rural urban areas, the boundary between it is very thin line. Boundary is very thin line. What here I mean to say, that the people, that boundary means there is not so much of restriction. So people surrounding the city, the rural people surrounding the city, they keep coming and going from urban to rural place for better economic opportunities, or to participate in various processes of a city. For example, take Delhi. So there are around Delhi, there are various villages, right? There are various villages around city also. The villages of Haryana, locally the villages of UP, or even some of the villages also in Delhi. So these are actually these are the suburban areas, or the surrounding rural areas, from where people keep coming and participate in various processes of cities. Now, when I say various processes of cities, that they come here in participating in various market processes. They come for sale and purchase of vegetables. They come for better economic opportunities. They keep going for better education opportunities, so on and so forth, right? So this all adds to a mixing. This all adds to the concept of urban agglomeration also, and the mixing of cultural spaces as well, right? Which we will understand further. So this UN, United Nations World Urbanization Prospect Report also says that by 2031 there would be 6% increase in the 6% increase in urban population. So earlier it was 3%, now it would be 6% increase, right? So there are a few other concepts which we'll try to understand here in urbanization, that what is urbanization and what are the various factors of urbanization. So, and here is another concept which I just now mentioned, that in your paper also it was asked, that urbanization as a way of life, which was given by Louis Firth. So urbanization, the rising urban population demographically, and urbanization has its social dimensions also, that is rural way of life, or rural ways changing to urban ways, right? So now what actually gave rise to urbanization? What was the central issue, or the central factor which actually gave rise to urbanization? Obviously, it is the process of industrialization. The establishment of industries, it gave rise to urbanization. The concept is very well given in your NCRT, class 12th NCRT, and it gives you a very lucid explanation, and in a very lucid way, with various examples, it has made you understand that how this industrialization led to change in the demographic structure of Britain, in West, the demographic structure of Western country, actually it changed, and how the population also changed, and how the urban population grew, in larger proportion. So industrialization, with the establishment of industries, with the advancement of technology, the concept of urbanization came into being. So that's this industrialization, because when the industry is being started setting up, people from rural areas, they started coming and started working in the industry, and the all concept, the assembly line concept, the concept of the assembly line, where various in the production unit, various various parts of single entity is being made by one or by various people. For example, you try to understand in this way, in the production of a car, the car is produced at one unit maybe, right? Leave aside the effect of globalization. The car is manufactured at one unit, and in manufacturing this car, somebody makes the tire, somebody makes the screw, somebody makes the steering of it, somebody makes the body of it. So the car is actually being manufactured by the efforts of various people, right? And also people started working on to increase the production. They started the concept of assembly line also grew up. It was which you can understand it in this way, that a production, a fixed amount of production was actually a target was given to each individual to complete it, and therefore they used to work on the belt in order to fasten their work. They used to work on the belt so that the time is less consumed in moving the parts from one place to another place. So the concept, the process of industrialization actually gave rise to the process of urbanization, or the concept of rising cities. The cities started coming up, where the industries were being set up, and the people from rural areas, they started thronging up in those factories for better work opportunities and to work in those areas. There are other issues also associated with it, but we'll stick to it. Now, what are the social dimensions? If we understand, as per your question, the social dimension of urbanization, then urbanism as a way of life, how you take it, how you understand urbanism as a way of life, as given by Louis Firth. So distinct way of life, due to rising cities and with heterogeneous population. You need to understand, first of all, as Durkheim, a sociologist, famous sociologist, Emile Durkheim, has also talked about, organic and mechanical solidarity, and he tries to understand rural areas and urban areas also when he talks about solidarity. So you need to understand that a city has a distinct way of life, has a different way of life as compared to rural areas or as compared to villages. Now, what is the distinct way of life is actually the way of life which actually Louis Firth also talks about and says urbanism as a way of life. So this distinct way of life is what is actually how you are using the technologies, how you are using your money, how it has affected your consumption, how it has affected your culture, how it has affected your various religious practices. You may not have given it up absolutely, but somehow you have changed your cultural practices, to a larger extent, in order to accommodate yourself in a city, in order to accommodate yourself in the process of in the process of urban way of living. So you actually set a standard, you actually set a you try to behave in a very urban way. You say you think that certain way of exuberance or certain way of showing may not be acceptable in a city, so therefore you consider it outdated or maybe a kind of quote unquote rustic. So this urbanism way of life is a very distinct way of living in an urban city, where you have migrated from a rural area in search of better job opportunity, in search of better education facility, in search of increasing your standard, standard of living, right? So therefore, that specific, different and distinct way of life from rural areas actually is understood as urbanism way of life. Urbanism as a way of life where you have a different set of social relationship, where you have a different pattern of behavior as a city dweller, as a citizen of that particular state or that city, right? So that is that distinct and specific way of behaving is considered as urbanism way of life. And what is that distinct way? That you have a different social organization, you have different way of gathering, you have different way of earning, you have different way of culture, your dressing, way of dressing, your education, so on and so forth, right? So this changing social and economic dimension actually, when you come to a city, gives rise to urbanism as a way of life. Now when I say changing social and economic institution, then when I talk about social, then obviously in when I talk about social, then obviously you are taking into consideration the social, the cultural aspect of it, right? And when I say economic changes, then obviously your way of earning, your mode of earning in an urban area is different from rural area, because in rural area you are more into agricultural practices, you are more into farming, right? You are more into your mode of living is your mode of earning is absolutely different, whereas when you are in urban areas, you are not so much into farming, you're not into agriculture, you are more into either into industries, or you are working because of globalization, which we'll discuss just now, the effect of globalization. You're not into either you are into knowledge economy, or you are into working in industry, or the secondary sector of your economy, the secondary or the tertiary sector, but you are not participating in the primary sector, right? That is agriculture. So that is what is the basic difference, which you can understand also in in urban areas where you are earning, and in rural areas where you are working, right? So this, when I talk about economic aspect, then obviously your way of earning, your way of work is different as compared to rural areas. Then there is division of labor, your every, it is very structured in urban setting. The work is very structured, what you have to do, how much you have to do, it. And there is division of labor, the concept given again by Emile Durkheim, that what task is given to you is already assigned to you, right? If you are working in an industry, if you have to make a tire, if you're manufacturing a car, if you have to make a tire, you will be making a tire, you'll not go and start making the screw of it, right? So there is division of labor, and this division of labor gives rise to interdependence in society. So people are also interdependent in society, which again Emile Durkheim understands it in the terms of mechanical and organic solidarity. In urban societies we find organic solidarities, and in rural societies we find mechanical solidarity, because where people are again interdependent on the basis of their physical capacities. So this is the economic dimension. Now when we talk about social dimension, then this urbanism as a way of life and urbanization as continuity and change also you need to understand. Now this urbanization as continuity and change, the concept again given by Yogendra Singh, in which he talks about that there is continuity and change. That means when you come or when you migrate to an urban setting from rural setting, you just don't give up all your cultural and socio-religious practices. You rather try to you follow it, but you follow it in a little modified way. You try to change it a bit, right? Now for example, the process of marriage, take for example. Now, this process of marriage, which is followed in a rural setting, is quite elaborate. It's a 5-6 day process. But when you have migrated to urban place, when you are an urban dweller, when you are in when you have to take care of your work also, so there those practices have actually shrinked. It has come down. The process of marriage, it gets completed within a day or two maybe, right? So you are following the various practices, your cultural practices, but in a very modified way. So there is a continuity and there is change also, right? So the traditional forms often continue, it often persists, but it persists with a change. That is what Yogendra Singh also says. In the same way, the institutional forms, for example, caste, for example, joint family, for example, the concept of neighborhood. So the caste identity is still very much prevalent, is still very much, recognizable in the cities as well. But there is little bit of change. Earlier, people used to be known and interact, in rural areas, people interact basically on the basis of their caste identity. But in urban place where you are working, suppose you are working in a factory, you may not be bothered about the caste of your caste of your fellow person, or caste of your fellow companion who is also working there in a factory with you, right? In a industry with you. You're not associated with his or her caste, right? You hardly take care of his or her caste identity, and both of you work together. So this is how caste identity is still prevalent, but maybe it has changed. Now, how it is still prevalent, that but when the same person has to marry his or her daughter, the person would try to find a better match in his or her caste, or maybe he'll look for a better match. He'll find out a family from a rural area, and so on and so forth. But caste identity remains, but with a bit of change, right? In the same way, family. Now, in rural areas, obviously there are joint families, but in urban areas, there are extended family. Right now, extended family includes the couple and the couple parents, or maybe couple sisters, right? So, and now with the effect of globalization, we'll also see that how the concept of extended family has also seen a bit of change here also, that we'll discuss in the concept of globalization. Now, what are the problems of urbanization? Obviously, the issues of urbanization is the unbalanced development, then the issues of slum, the issues of unemployment, the issue of crime, the issue of urban poverty, the healthcare system, ill health, and also the deviant behavior. So these are the problems which are rising because of unplanned urbanization, you can say, right? Now, this unplanned urbanization also gives rise to increasing rise of slum areas, which is called as ghettoization. So ghettos are the slum areas, are the people who are living, whose living standard is quite low, and who are the people are BPL people, that is, who are below poverty line, or you can also understand they are ultra poverty concept, that is poorest among the poor, who don't have their pakka house or concrete house. They are living their house is either made by hay or by plastic. They do not have any sanitation facility. They do not have proper drinking facility. And their each day earning is also very, very low. So this urbanization, the unplanned urbanization, the process of urbanization gives rise to the process of ghettoization, ghettoization, the creation of ghettos, that is creation of ghettos through the conversion of mixed composition neighborhood into single community neighborhood. Now, this composition of neighborhood also is very, very important aspect in ghettos, in creation of ghettos, right? It also gives rise to, the process of urbanization also gives rise to subculture formation. Now, what is this subculture formation? Now, the transport and commute, the process of commuting becomes a way of life, and it has a direct impact on the quality of life. Now, how it has a direct impact of quality of life of working people in the city? Because when you're migrating or when you're commuting from one place to another place, maybe say by train or maybe by bus. For example, in Mumbai, people commute to quite far places for their work, in the local trains. So they interact together. They every day they meet the same passengers and they interact. They become friends. They also share culture. They also share their practices. So it gives rise to a kind of subculture. For instance, suburban culture. So suburban culture, you are meeting in train, you are having chit chat. The locals are having chit chat. They are celebrating. They are singing bhajan. They are celebrating festivals. They are sharing cuisines, and therefore they have a specific way or a general way of socialization, right? And this, or talking on any influential political party. So this is actually the concept of subculture. You follow, you look forward to your process of commuting through local train or bus, where you are meeting your fellow passengers every day and you are interacting. So it gives rise to a concept of subculture or suburban culture, right? So the problems of urbanization you have to understand. And now, after understanding the problems of the urbanization, that is inadequate housing, sanitation problem, the issues of population, the delinquent behavior, the poor healthcare facilities, the problem of ghettoization. These all are the issues of the social problems, the rise of crime, the rise of violence. These all are the problems of urbanization, right? Now, what are the measures taken to overcome the problems associated with urbanizations? First, you can understand that Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, because problem of household, proper household is a very important problem associated with urbanization. So in order to ensure better housing facility, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana for urban, ensuring housing for all in urban areas, it was launched in 2015. And it covers the span of 2015 to 22, and it includes slum redevelopment, in situ slum development. There only, the slums are where the slums are there, they are developed there only, and they are provided with resources, housing facilities, sanitation facility, so on and so forth. Then Smart City Mission, which was again launched in 2015 to promote core infrastructure and to give decent quality of life to its people, to its citizen, with clean and sustainable environment through smart solutions. Now, through smart solutions, the electricity supply, sanitation, then water supply. So these are waste management, better sanitation, or urban mobility, having, for example, in Delhi, you find CNG buses, you have metros, you have buses, you have e-rickshaws. So these are the smart ways of tackling the problem of urbanization. Robust IT connection, internet connection, information technology, robust information technology, infrastructure, better road facilities. So these are the issues which are covered under Smart City Mission. Then Atal Mission for Rejuvenation, that is Amrut, that is Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, Amrut 2015. Again, urban local bodies with population of 1 lakh or more, and it covers all cities and UTs and all Hriday cities, that is Heritage and Augmentation Yojana, which is covered under Hriday. So all the cities located on main rivers are considered for better development, and considered, and the cities are taken care of for providing better IT facilities, for providing better household facility, better sanitation, healthcare, and other issues, right? And this is also considered a tourist destination. So various economic infrastructures are also taken care of. Another you can take measure which is being taken to mitigate the issue of urbanization is online building permission system, OBPS, which has also facilitated the ease of doing business. in construction. It provides online permits and permissions for for applications. The acceptance of application are done through online, and it has led to various infrastructure development, and it has also increased the ease of doing business. The report which is taken out by World Bank. Jal Shakti Abhiyan, again in urban areas, to provide better drinking water facility, right? And keeping in view the SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goal, for ensuring sustainable management of water and sanitation. So such schemes like Jal Shakti Abhiyan has been launched by Ministry of Jal Shakti. In the same way, National Water Policy 2012 also. Then real estate, the problem of the housing, which is again related with housing, the Real Estate Act 2016 for regulation and promotion of real estate, in which various people, in which people actually invest, or in which people actually put money to buy their flats and to ensure their better housing facility. So the Real Estate Act 2016, it ensures and it regulates and promotes the real estate development body and protecting the interest of its consumers, like you and me. So RERA is the very important step being taken in terms of urban development. RERA, that is Real Estate Regulatory Authority, which takes care of real estate and various bodies. Right. Another very important factor when we talk about urbanization is the issue of migration. So therefore there has to be a very balanced kind of development. Economic development, infrastructure development has to be taken place, so that this influx of people coming from rural area to urban area should maybe controlled. For example, now these days village areas have also a lot of possibilities and potentials for development. The concept of organic farming, which is coming up day by day, and you can see that various personals from IT sector, the various people who are having specific skills, they are getting involved in organic farming, and they are reaping the benefit of organic farming, and they are earning quite well. So the impact of urbanization in rural areas has also need to be taken care and need to be understood. Now, what are the impacts of urbanization in rural areas? It is somewhere lessening the digital divide. People are interacting now. There is not exactly, you can say, there is a shock of culture is not happening, or people are not lagging behind absolutely. And urbanization and westernization as a process of social change, and which is leading to change in rural and urban areas, and villages located near the town, they also receive the influx of immigrants, workers, and therefore there is an exchange of culture. People keep coming and going to village and cities. So this also gives rise to a flow of money in rural areas. So even in rural areas also, people, their purchasing power capacity is also improving, and economic standard of people living in rural areas are also improving. And obviously the commercialization of agriculture, which is also associated with urbanization and also the process of globalization. So commercialization of agriculture is also taking place. So you have to understand that there is continuity between rural and urban areas, which has increased because of urbanization, because of the process of urbanization. And there is thus urbanism as a way of life. And there are various issues which has to be understood when we understand the process of urbanization, that what are the factors which are important to understand that actually rises with the process of urbanization. And that is the process, that is the problem of housing, the problem of sanitation, water facility, better education, better healthcare facility. So these are the problems which has to be better transport facility, better conveyance facility. So these are the issues which has to be taken care with the process of urbanization, and there has to be a proper balanced way of urbanization. right? So with this, I end your class here, and I'll be taking another class on globalization, and also a very important topic, that is the topic, that is the issue of regionalism, secular communalism. So these are the issues also I would be taking up. Thank you so much.